Hey everyone, Teamfight Tonka here. On today's episode of How It Works, I want to explain a hidden system in the game that I see a lot of high elo streamers or players understand and take into account, but don't really talk about, despite it being such a huge influence on the amount of things you need to do turn to turn, and that is opponent tracking. So obviously this is going to differ between what elo you're at, but especially if you're new to the game and you're not used to thinking about so many things at any given time. Understanding who your next opponents are is a huge difference. It's what helped me climb initially, and I'm slowly starting to move back from it. But it basically allows you to know who your next three opponents are going to be at any given time for a majority of the game. This means you can have a good idea of which opponent you need to position against for Zephyrs or which side you want to put your assassins on. Because you know that you're only going to be able to face three possible players, you can position for three people instead of 6 or 7 or however many people are left in your game. So if you find this content helpful, help me back with a like and subscribe, since it goes a long way for a nobody content creator like myself. You can catch me throughout the week on Twitch at the link above my face. So if you want to learn how to track your opponents, let's get to it. What a quality title card. Okay, so before we dive into this beautiful Excel doc that I have here, let's go over what the system is. So the idea is that after you fought everyone except for 3 opponents, then you can know with 100% certainty that you will only be able to fight 3 possible people at any given time. And you can know exactly who these people are if you track this properly. This is always true until an opponent is knocked out, and then the whole cycle resets again. So you'll have to fight through people until there's only 3 opponents left, and then you'll always know who your next 3 opponents could be. You will always know your opponent out of the next 3 possible people. As I mentioned earlier, this means that aside from general scouting to see how many units are taken, you really only have to be prepared to fight 3 people at any given time, which can so easily alleviate a lot of the sort of randomness that people claim to have when they're fighting people. What I mean by that is, sometimes you'll get in games where opponents will start all chatting and saying that they fought the same person twice in a row or blame bad RNG for opponents. They're usually almost always wrong unless someone died the previous turn, which resets the count, as I said. Because the way the system is set up, it's not possible to fight the same person really close together. In fact, you have to fight at least 4 opponents between fighting the last person you fought. So it's untrue, unlikely. This is the way the system works. I've played thousands of games of TFT now in the last 2 sets. So in a game like TFT, I find myself becoming a better player by eliminating the things that I can't blame on myself, because it forces you to understand what you did wrong instead of falling into a pattern of saying that it was bad RNG from opponents, that it was just not fair, right? Obviously, there is an RNG element to it, but understanding how this system works should take that element out of it at least. Okay, so while this part isn't super important, I think it's valuable to see what systems in the game are sort of predetermined in a sense. So spots on the mini-map here, pretend this is the map in your bottom corner, correspond directly to the loading screen, for example. So here's your loading screen. The person in the first slot will be number 1. And the person in the first slot will always go in the upper middle section. And then this follows clockwise all the way around the board, so that the person in the last spot is in the upper left corner. So again, not that important, but it's good to take this time to figure out where people are going to be, because you're going to need to keep track of people's home bases. So obviously, if we are spot 1, in this example we are, our home base is always going to be this upper middle spot. So let's just mark that as blue so that we know we'll never fight that spot. What I mean by home base is you will always live on the spot that you start the game on. So whether you're teleporting to another person's map, that means you are going to their home base to fight them. You will always go back to the same spot in the end. So this is important because you need to track the opponents that you're facing, and you need to track the order in which you're fighting them. So let's go over an example here. I'm going to break the whole thing down. So in this example, like I said, we are spot 1. We've tracked all our opponents' home bases as listed here. We know exactly where 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are. And because we never face ourselves, we take ourselves out of the choice pool. So we have 7 total opponents that we can fight in our first match. So let's say we fight opponents, let's use red here. Say we fight our opponents 2. We'll fight opponent 4, we'll fight opponent 5, and we'll fight opponent 8. Okay, so we fought 2, 4, 5, and 8. This means that we know with 100% certainty that our next opponent is going to be 3, 6, or 7. As a side note, if this is the start of the game, you know exactly who you're going to fight before the first PvP or the first PvE round. So this is important if you're win streaking or lose streaking. So if you're going for the 5 wins or the 5 losses, you can take a look and figure out and know that you'll fight one of 3 opponents. Very important if you see someone that is potentially weaker than you and you're on a 4-loss streak and you really want that 5-loss streak going into neutrals. If you see someone weaker than you out of the 3 possible opponents, you can just instantly sack your board to make it weaker so that you can guarantee that loss streak. Inversely, if you are on a 4-win streak and you see someone who is slightly stronger but you could beat by changing in some units, then you can make that change and you can know that there's a chance you will fight that opponent next. So let's get to the really important part now. So let's say that we face opponent 7. So what this does is it means there's now only 2 possible opponents, but in TFT, you will always have a pool of 3 possible opponents. So this is where tracking the order in which you fought people becomes very relevant. So the order that we fought people was 2, 4, 5, and 8. Because we fought 7 and we need to add someone to the pool, we add the oldest person back to the pool. So number 2, we'll now mark with green to signify that we can fight him again. That is the wrong green. It bothers me too. So we'll go over another person. So 2 is back in the pool. Let's say that we have fought 3 now. So let's mark 3. And the next person that we fought was 4, right? So we take out 3 and we add 4 back to the pool. So this continues all the way through the game. Very simple. So let's say that 2 is playing real bad. 2 gets knocked out. So 2 is now marked at gray. He is dead. 8th place, loser. This means that everyone else in the pool is now free game again. So we're going to just do this darker green now. This is one of the scenarios where it is 100% possible to fight someone that you just fought. While it's still the same odds as anyone else, if you just fought 3 in the turn that 2 died, and then everyone else gets turned on again, this means that you do have a chance to fight 3, but you'd fight his ghost. So you 2 won't be directly matched against someone you just fought, but you do have the chance to fight their ghost, which realistically is them again, right? So something to keep in mind, that is how that works. And then it continues again. So let's say you fight... we fight 3, 4, and 5. We're just going to get lazy now. This means you know that you're fighting 6, 7, or 8 next. And then same rules apply. Let's say you fight 8. You take 8 out of the possible pool, and then we add green or 3 back to the pool. And this continues all the way until the final 4. This doesn't really do anything for you in the final 4 because you'll always have a total of 3 opponents, and there's only 3 possible opponents if you've made it to the final 4. But yeah, that is the entire system, this hidden system that is so easy to sort of understand, but no one really seems to know about it. So yeah, that is essentially the entire process behind how this oddly hidden mechanic works. But I find it so important to understand that matching is not some random mess, but it's a fairly simple algorithm to sort of understand that it's just units. You fight X amount of people and you always have a pool of 3 people, and it's sort of replacing as you fight more and more people. The differences in what you need to do round to round definitely goes down when you're only thinking about 3 possible opponents as opposed to 7 at all times, right? I know what a lot of people do is they'll see the last opponent they fought, maybe the last 2, and they'll be like, okay, there's no chance I fight them, which is generally true. But not understanding the system and then having to fight their ghost again can feel like frustrating RNG when realistically there's there's a reason that it happens that way, right? So yeah, there are a ton of online tools, none of which I've created, but I do use some. If there's interest, I can link them in the comments below. But again, didn't create any of them. You could use a pen and paper or like an Excel sheet like I did, or you could just use your head if you can track that stuff easily. I cannot. I generally use an online tool or I use a pen and paper. But yeah, this helped me in my climb immensely, especially getting through plat when I was first starting to learn the game back in set 2 and 3. Yeah, it does change from time to time, but the way that you track opponents hasn't changed since the start of set 3. I don't see it changing anytime soon. I haven't seen any news on that. So as soon as it does get changed, I will update the video and let you guys know. But hopefully this helps you guys in your climb. Good luck, and I will see you guys on the ladder.